Hi witches, so we are winding down on our Earth Magic week, and before we finished everything, I really wanted to touch on some amazing earth-based deities and spirits for any of my witches who are interested in getting into deity work but aren't really sure where to start, or maybe need some ideas, or like I just wanted to talk about it, so let's just jump right in. The first deity I want to talk about is Gaia, also called Terra, and she is a Greco-Roman personification of the earth, and she's one of the Greek primordial deities. So she is very, very old. She is older than the gods, definitely, and even older than the Titans. So she is really that deep, like, Mother Earth goddess. So very old, very very powerful, so very cool goddess to work with. The next is Demeter, who is the Greek goddess of harvest and agriculture, and she presides over the fertility of the earth. So if that is an aspect of the earth that you would like to work with, maybe if you have a garden or something, Demeter can, especially if you are a farmer or like have like food bearing crops. I don't know if that's the right term. I was never able to grow that kind of stuff because we always had deer in our backyard and they would eat them. But if you are lucky enough to have that, Demeter might be a goddess. Maybe you can have a statue of her in your garden or something. A very, like, I don't want to say famous goddess, but a goddess I see worked with a lot within witchcraft is Persephone. She's the goddess of spring growth and vegetation, and she's linked to both Demeter and also Hades. So if you guys don't know, she is Hades' wife. She is in the underworld for part of the year, and then in, you know, the real world above the underworld. I don't know. She's on Earth, on the plane of Earth, during the warmer part of the year. So she has been out and about recently. It's getting nice and warm. But yeah, she is a spring goddess and a goddess of vegetation. So yeah. The next goddess I wanted to talk about is Artemis, who is the goddess of the hunt, wild nature, and chastity. So she's kind of an earth-based goddess, but like not necessarily completely. It's kind of an aspect of her. She's a virgin goddess and the patroness of young girls or adolescent girls, as well as the protector of pregnant women, and she is called on to protect mothers during childbirth. If you are an adolescent, or maybe if you have an adolescent in your household, or a young child, or you are a mother, or you're pregnant, or trying to get pregnant, she is a great goddess to call upon for that kind of working. She has that link to fertility and pregnancy and all of that. So I just wanted to mention her in this video. So the next deity I wanted to talk about is Dionysus, who is the god of wine, the Greek god, I should say, of wine and viticulture, which is like wine growing or grape growing for wines, winemaking. That's the word I'm looking for. So I really like wine. Dionysus seems like a cool guy. He's also the god of fertility and religious ecstasy. His Roman name is Bacchus. So if you've heard of the like the Roman festival of Bacchanalia, it is basically like a huge like party slash orgy. So if you work with him, your energy is super chaotic, most definitely, but I really respect it. I think he is a very interesting god to work with, and who doesn't love wine, right? Next god I wanted to talk about is Pan, and he is the god of the wilds. He's the Greco-Roman, I believe, god of the wilds, of shepherds and of flocks. So he's someone you can work with. I do see him worked with a lot. The next god I want to talk about is Jord, who is the Norse personification of the earth. Some legends say she's a consort of Odin and the mother of Thor, but it kind of depends on what like legends you're looking at. I saw some like conflicting information. So if you do work with this goddess, I would love to hear more about it. If you work within the Norse pantheon, I would love to hear more about it. Please like teach me your ways, please. Next god I want to talk about is Geb, who is the Egyptian god of the earth. And he is married to Nut, the goddess of the sky. So it's kind of a beautiful thing. You generally, in a lot of like mythology, especially like coming from ancient cultures, you see that marriage between the earth and the sky, which I think is really beautiful. And especially a really beautiful way to see like the horizon and to explain it, you know. I think it kind of goes without saying that mythology is the way that ancient people like explain the world around them, to see them, to like see this mythology as a way that they explained like a horizon line is just like really cool to me. The next like goddess slash being, I don't really know how to explain this, but the next person I wanted to talk about, I guess, is Mother Nature, and this is kind of that archetypal like mother goddess to me that like transcends all paths. A lot of polytheistic religions have this concept, and I think it's a really great archetype to bring into your craft, and I think it's like really recognizable, which is like really nice and like really cool to me. I think that even if you are working with a specific god or goddess or set of gods or goddesses, if you have a specific religion, if you work within the Christian, path or any Abrahamic faith, if you work within that, I think even just acknowledging Mother Earth is like a really common thing to do. Even when I was like in the church and stuff, like we talked about Mother Earth, which I think is like a very transcendent like concept, like the fact that a religion that was like, hey, there's only one God and God created everything, also like acknowledged the earth as an entity. Okay, I'm super sorry about that. My camera cut off, but I think I got it fixed. The next god that I wanted to talk about is Cernunnos, who is one of my patrons, or is my patron, I should say. And he is the Celtic horned god. He's the lord of the wild hunt and of the forest. So he is definitely a nature-based deity. If you're going to work with one, he's awesome to work with. I did a whole video about him if you want to hear about my experiences. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below though. The next kind of spirit actually that I wanted to talk about are gnomes. And we talked about this in our elementals episode, but a gnome is an earth elemental described by the 16th century alchemist Paracelsus. He's also a physician, but they basically look exactly like how you would expect. And they live underground and they walk through earth as easily as we walk through air. So having a representation of a gnome on your altar might be a really great way to bring that earth element in. You can also work with Oreads, which are the Greek mountain nymph. So they are nymphs that live up in the mountains, obviously by their name. Spirits that I wanted to talk about are the Huldra, which are Scandinavian female forest spirits that lure men to their deaths. So very spooky, kind of reminds me of the Banshee. And then of course the Fae, and there are so many of these there are so many. So if you are interested in working with the Fae, there's a video about that I already made. And there are different types. There are house Fae, there are forest Fae. So that is a whole realm in and of itself. But if you do work with the Fae, they are kind of inherently earth-based. So it's pretty cool. And then finally, if you are into more of the Greco-Roman tradition, perhaps working with fauns or satyrs, which are kind of half human, half goat, or half human, half horse, I believe. Spirits that are associated with like Dionysus. If you think of like Mr. Tumnus, it's kind of like the archetypal image, Mr. Tumnus from the Chronicles of Narnia, because I'm a huge nerd, but whatever. But yeah, those are just some of the many deities and spirits you could possibly work with. There are tons out there if these aren't for you. We'll be talking about air and fire deities as well. So yeah, stay tuned and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.